Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. Hey, guys, today I have another solo episode for you. Actually, my numbers have been indicating that you prefer the solo episodes or the ones that have me and Jacob. And today I'm talking to you about why the law of attraction does not work for you and how to fix it. Now, first of all, like if you're not in the space, because here's the kind of the con of the law of attraction. It tells you never to have a negative thought, never to have doubt. If you have doubt, your manifestations won't come into this reality. And so you're doubting. And so it's kind of a structure that won't allow people to learn anything beyond it to correct what may be going wrong with it. So kind of immediately understand that doubt and being able to question yourself is an integral part of having full access to your power so that you don't misuse it, so that you fully understand yourself, your motivations, that you can work best with your own magical flow, because almost everyone truly has some form of energetic or magical flow. And the law of attraction is actually a form of magic, but it's an incomplete form of magic, and it's why people struggle so much with it. It kind of holds that if you engage in these repetitive actions, including visualization and scripting and speaking things into existence and acting as if you already possess what you're trying to manifest, and it teaches something that has a grain of serious actual truth in it, but it takes it from a different perspective than it needs to be understood. And that is that your thoughts create your reality. This is both true and false. Your perception of your reality is what your thoughts are, whether you're focusing on the negative or the positive. If you're focusing on the negative situation, you're going to feel miserable. You're going to have a miserable reality. You're always going to be asking, why do I lack this? Why do I lack that? It's called a lack mindset. There are principles within the law of attraction that actually are sound in the practice of magic. And what the heck is magic? It's energetic management. It's essentially the key element that the law of attraction is trying to utilize without utilizing the other aspects of, truly ancient magic. It teaches you that you need only think things for them to be, and that your world is manifested around you by your thought process. And it's a backwards view on it. Your world view is actually influenced by how you think about it, how you approach your life, what you focus on, what you decide you will value in your life, because you could have a beautiful existence right here, right now, and feel like you are truly blessed if you would go through your life focusing on what you have rather than what you don't. And that includes the people that you value, not necessarily the things, but the things as well. There is something in your life. If you're listening to this recording, you have some leisure time and you have access to a device that will allow you to listen to podcasts. Those are blessings in your life that not everybody has. And you have to remember that we have a tendency to compare our reality to who has more and why don't we have that? And that is the lack mindset. When in reality, I am, and you likely are as well, living somebody's Disney dream, meaning that your reality, the things that's in it, are so far afield of what some people who truly have little, that's that we are incredibly blessed. And if you start viewing your mindset, you start viewing your life from that standpoint of I'm so incredibly blessed, then your energy will relax. You will be more grateful. You will be happier. So your life will improve immediately. But the law of attraction teaches people something that is fundamentally flawed, which is that it wants you to divorce yourself almost in an amputation from your shadow side, which is your balancing energy. One of the basic principles of all magic is as above, so below. You have to live in a state of balance in order to have things be grounded in this reality. And the law of attraction lacks any grounding practices. It also tells you that you can ask and ask and ask to receive, but not maintain an energetic balance where you give back. And I am going to teach you how to fix all of this, so hang in there. Because magic is actually available to everyone, and you don't need to be involved in a discipline or a practice to be able to have access to magical power. I'm always asking people, please don't do magic that you don't understand. But manifesting work and spells are ever so slightly different. There are spells that can manifest, and I do use spells to manifest personally. The law of attraction is telling you to engage in energetic programming, which is what your thoughts create your reality. is about, where you're trying to program your mind to see the positive, to dwell in the positive, to dwell in gratitude. It has a tendency to try and suppress to the point of repression the idea that doubt is a normal thing to help us question ourselves, which helps us see when we are wrong, because we're all wrong sometimes. Our ability to learn, to grow, and to expand throughout the course of our lives, throughout the course of our soul experience, does lie in the ability to re-examine things that we thought we knew, to achieve growth, to expand. And if the law of attraction says you may not have any doubt, you have to utterly believe that something will be with you. What you need to do is believe that you have power in your own life, that what you do in your life is the thing that will cause the biggest difference. That if you walk forward with a glad heart, with a kind mind, you will receive that energy in return. And this is where the law of attraction starts taking something that is a basic principle of energetic management and turning it into a very inward view rather than an outward view. Meaning that if you understand that in all of our lives, there are both negatives and positive, in all of our, personal selves, there are negative emotions and there are positive emotions. And it's not like an issue of good or bad. It's just that in order to have courage, you need to have fear as a counterbalancing thing. Everybody has some fear. You will get the best manifestations. You'll get the most out of your ability to attract what you desire to you when you live in conjunction with, or in a kind of a cooperative spirit with, the darker aspects of yourself. And the law of attraction tries to tell people the darker aspects, no, don't go in that door, don't go there. And it will still be there. It will still be there. And I've said this before, but it keeps coming up and it keeps coming up. And originally, Jacob and I had planned to do this together. He had a work meeting and I said, I'm just going to go ahead and do this myself, because I really just want to get this out here during the season where it's highly appropriate. We are in the season of basically the veil being thinnest. It happens every year in October. We're able to achieve our ancestor work. And you will always have greater and stronger manifestations when you tie into an energetic signature, which is what all of our lives are, and who came before us as well. They're carrying out an energetic signature that is traveling through time and space. And until you adjust that frequency or that signature to make corrections in what it eventually achieves and what it evolves into. And that's what happens with the law of attraction being flawed, is that they're trying to achieve an energetic evolution without doing the counterbalancing work to harness the power of your shadow side, because your shadow side is so powerful. Oh my gosh. It is part of the reason. And if you have big magic, you're going to have big everything. And you have to learn how to work with your darker aspects rather than against them. And that is where the giant flaw in the law of attraction is. It tells you that your darker side is something to reject rather than to embrace and to understand and to work with. And so that's the big flaw. That's the big flaw. Many of the techniques in the law of attraction still work, meaning that there is worth in doing things like scripting. There is worth in doing things like a moon magic cycle, which is the biggest thing that you can do to connect yourself to your own magic ability. This is where I'm getting into, how do we start fixing this? Because the flaw is it's very obvious. It is that they're trying to divorce you from a big part of your personality, which is rejection of self, which means you will never, ever truly have access to your own power if you reject rather than care for the aspects of yourself that are sometimes negative or destructive or difficult to deal with. In order to have real power at your disposal, you have to really be in alignment. That's part of a spiritual journey, being in spiritual alignment with yourself. And it doesn't mean letting that monster run free. As I'm always saying, I don't even like me when I'm angry. I like it. It's, you're never supposed to dislike parts of yourself. It's just like, wow, that's got a lot of power behind it. And so I really try to get to it quickly, as that's how I learned how to deal with it. Is, am I angry? What do I need to do about this? Why am I angry? Usually anger precedes fear, meaning your anger is preceding something that you're actually afraid of. And I learned to understand my negative emotions and to work with them rather than against them. And the way that we learn to work with them is to learn how to care for them. And these are things that I've said before, but this is very specifically about why is the law of attraction not working for you? This is something that Oprah Oprah introduced to the world through the book The Secret. And that was a long time ago. That was like at least 15 years ago, I believe. I've never read The Secret. If it worked, guys, don't you think everybody would have the pony and the castle and the great career and all the magic? And it's flawed because it does not. I've called it flash and thunder magic before, and that's what it is. Something that will flash in and out of a reality. Most of the techniques in the law of attraction are great for emotionally influential magic, which I don't personally do because I'm a celestial and angelic high priestess technically. I don't like to use the term because it just feels, I don't know, like it feels like I'm bragging or something. And it's like, no, it's not that. It's just a form of power that was made available to me because it's part of my ancestral line. It's part of what I think I've always done throughout lifetime after lifetime. I apparently made an eternal oath to the side of what I consider good. And I do believe in good and evil. And I think the world reflects that. Even though it can be a subjective thing, and there truly is good, kindness, compassion, and acceptance. And apparently I have always been sworn to that side, and I will always return to that side, that it is against my actual soul to try and serve darker energies or baser motives, essentially. And the law of attraction tries to tell us, ignore those baser motives while telling people to act upon them in a bright and a shiny way. Meaning that if all you're trying to manifest is money, 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 I want more money. It's like, well, that's contributing to the darker aspects of this world. Not that there's anything wrong with money, but what this world has done with it, there very much is, as people suffer more and more from the lack of it, and people hoard it more and more. And one of the most ridiculous constructs of this world is investing worth in the idea of an ever-inflating number that will not keep you safe in a crumbling world. If you're going to be using magic, use it in a way that benefits your actual entire existence rather than the crumbling structure of a society that got a lot of things wrong. And it's a global problem. It's not just our problem. We have a tendency to value things that our power structures tell us to. And that is actually what The Secret is. It was somebody who was trying to sell someone something, the whole idea of you can have the life you want by focusing your intent and your energy and your effort. And this is all true. But if you want to harness the idea of magic manifestation, you need to create an energetic exchange. So here's where we start talking about how to fix it. So you can still do all the things with the visualizing, the vision boards, the scripting, the 369, the repetitions, which again will always work on smaller things, which is why people think it works. Like there's a contact me thing that people can do. And basically you're pushing your thoughts at somebody. And so of course they feel it. If you're really focusing your intent on something, they feel it. And often they will feel like kind of spurred to reach out to you. And so that's why people are like, oh my God, it works. Receive a text from somebody in 15 minutes, do this. And what you're doing is you're hyper-focusing your energy on having a particular results. And when it's that small, something will flash in and out of reality, something reaching out. That doesn't mean that there's staying power in the relationship, just that somebody is connected to you enough that they feel your energy. But it's very difficult for it to bring you lasting energies because it has no earth element in it. It's all mental energy. And that is the air element, and it can have emotion behind it, which is the water element. But fire, which is action, and earth are not adequately represented in the law of attraction. So you can keep doing everything from the law of attraction, but here's where I start talking to you about how to make it work. Allow yourself to process your negative emotions and let them go. That's the key to it. It's not that you can't have these doubts. It's that when you do, you feel them, you talk about them, you release them, and then you get on with your day, having been like, ugh, there's that, get that out of my path, get it out of my way, and I can go forward trying again. But if you are always working with repression and denial, you are actually repressing your actual magic and manifesting power. Get comfortable with the doubt, just don't live there. Talk to yourself about what you're afraid of. Talk to yourself about what you're sad about. Talk to yourself about how frustrated you can actually be with how long things take. And you know what that is? That's unpacking your suitcase on a daily basis and then clearing your energetic field so that you are not dragging that weight with you. and repressing it and not allowing yourself to examine it, which is unfortunately what the law of attraction tells people. Never have any doubt. If you have any doubt, that's why things aren't manifesting. No, actually, things aren't manifesting because you refuse to acknowledge a huge part of your personal power. Because everybody who's got a bad temper knows this. It's a scary thing. It can blow up half your world if you don't learn how to control it. Everybody who's capable of great joy, remember that anger actually is often the counterbalancing aspect of that. So if you have great big love, if you have great big talent, if you have great big happiness, you're going to have darker things that keep you in balance. You're meant to be in balance, and you can't ignore them away, because then they get worse and they get worse and they pull everything off balance. And then people have all sorts of anxiety issues as well, because they're so ashamed of their own feelings, thinking that their feelings are the things that are keeping them from having a good life, when in fact, not being able to work with their feelings, understand themselves, and adequately care for that part of themselves that is not to be rejected. If you are rejecting a big part of who you are, you will never have true access to your magic. Now, that is not to say you should celebrate it. I have talked about this so much. I've literally worked so hard on it for so long that I feel like I have it on a leash, but that darn thing's always going to be on the end of that string. Is I have a giant genetic temper. Oh my gosh. I come from a line of, you can tell that my mom is from Scotland, and I think I'm probably related to Vikings somehow, is that there's a part of me that deep, deep in my little lizard brain is like, well, this is frustrating. Let's pick up a club and fight to the death, right? And it's just a part of me. Now, is it a part I give into? No, it's not. But I have to accept it as being like, well, that's also why I have so much energy in another aspect of myself, to keep going despite odds sometimes, to be able to have the strength to speak out when I need to. And I get that this may not be popular, but I'm so tired of seeing people put in so much effort and try so hard, and then they feel like failures. Because there are a few people who can be like, this worked for me. I hopped timelines. By the way, the idea of hopping timelines, that's just crossroads energy, where you make a different choice to pursue a different path, and you're always choosing the best path for yourself. And that's how people hop timelines. When you're trying to wake up in a new reality, what you're really trying to do is to wake up in the energy that will allow you to choose in service of your highest self, of your highest good. In order to truly love yourself, you have to accept yourself, and that entails accepting the parts of you that aren't your besties, the parts of you that can stand in your way, and learning again how to take care of them. And the way that I always put it is, try and think that you've adopted a difficult rescue dog, and that you have all the love and the patience for it in the world, because that wasn't created through its own fault. And you need to understand that it's not a case of fault, it's just a case of being. So the law of attraction doesn't work because it tries to divorce people from a side of themselves and shame it rather than embracing it and understanding it. So having established that pretty definitively, what you need to do in order to have your manifestations come in is to begin to engage in grounding practices. One of the ways to engage in grounding practices is to do new moon rituals and full moon rituals. New moons are for manifesting, full moons are for releasing. Part of why this entire topic came back is Jacob had to ask me a question about magic, and then he wanted to know if it was true that all petitions needed to be written in the present tense because the universe does not understand time. And of course, I almost lost my entire mind, because of course the universe understands time. We don't. From our vantage point, we lack certain understanding of the structure of time, but the universe actually understands it perfectly. And what you need to think about is your consciousness being a point on a global or a galactic or a universal GPS. And all of the things that you're calling to you can pinpoint your location in what is a timeline that is never going to be linear, because time really is happening all at once, but rather coordinates of your current location. And that's what it is. You can use the past tense, you can use the future tense. Please stop thinking that you have to put everything into a present tense in order for it to work. If you do not possess something and you're trying to engage in a form of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, that's what the law of attraction is based in, guys, is programming your brain to think a certain way. A better way to do that is to accept that things can change as I change, that if I focus on what is good, I will feel better and I will have more energy to do what I need to in this life to bring it to me. And it will actually help carry forward the energy. It will intensify your personal energy. You will have a stronger signal. Let's put it that way. A stronger energetic signal in this energetic signature that is carrying across all time and space. When you learn to, and it's not that you have to like it, it's that you have to understand it. Embrace your shadow side and do your shadow work and understand that that underbelly, that thing underneath the surface, is there not to destroy nor to be shamed out of existence, but to be understood and cared for properly so it doesn't get in your way. And ignoring it will never do that. Self-neglect never leads to empowerment. And this is what we're talking about when we're trying to manifest, is engaging in practices that will empower you to have the life that you want and to manifest the life of your dreams. So moon rituals help with that. If you don't have a dedicated altar space, that is okay, but you need to engage in something that are called offerings. If you're asking to be like, give me, give me, give me, give me, give me, all magic comes with a cost. All energetic magic comes with a counterbalancing energy as well. What are you putting forth? What are you putting into it? What are you offering as you ask for? It is a trade. It's not a bank from which you withdraw. It is a trade of energy. And so you want to, as you're manifesting, put an offering out on an altar or on a table with some flowers and a candle on the new moons. Melanie Santos actually made great videos on new moon and full moon manifestation rituals. And I really enjoy both of them. And that's part of the reason I haven't done them myself, is it's like these are really good, basic, non-magically, that's not tied to a discipline or a practice. These are available to everyone. So Melanie Santos, Santos on YouTube, look for her new moon and her full moon rituals. She does them very, very well. Those are the practices that I would encourage anyone, regardless of a discipline, to go towards. But I would further encourage them to do something that, if you're trying to manifest a more opulent life, then put us forward as decadent as you can an offering. And I'm always baking. And part of the reason I stopped being vegan was that, none of my ancestors were. And I was like, well, I'm constantly making ancestor offerings and trying to resolve generational curses for my collective. And none of those folks were vegan. And I'm actually a really good cook. And I can't do it with meat. I just can't. I've been non-meating for way too long to be like, well, I can make some bacon for them. Instead, I was like, okay, I can embrace dairy for baking again. And so I frequently make, decadent desserts for the new moon. And I also make them for the full moon, because that is asking for your ancestral lines and your guides and your guardians and your ancestors and your angels and the entities, the energies, the elements, the spirits, all who serve good, to aid you in the practice of releasing that which does not serve you. So anger can be protective, but rage is destructive. So you're trying to release rage and understand your anger on the full moon as a, for instance, about what you would want to try and release. And you make a small plate of something. Remember, you do not have to spend money you don't have. You share the best of what you have as you would with a guest. And that is what an offering is. And always put it out with some form of beverage. If you invite somebody into your home for a meal, you're going to offer them something to drink. It's a good idea to clean up as if you're having a guest as well, but it doesn't have to be like the queen's coming to tea. It's just you make the place as presentable as you can. And this will put into place good energetic management practices that will then benefit your life as well. And that is one of the basic things. Now, I personally, because of how much work, and I do this professionally, so I have offerings almost every day of the week. And sometimes it'll be like, oh gosh, it's sourdough toast with like date syrup on it or something because I'm beat. But a lot of the times it's something a little bit more elaborate. And do I ever feel bad about the food waste? A little bit, because it is being offered to be energetically consumed. And honest to goodness, I really do just view it as I'm inviting my relatives into my home to offer them something. And then the thing to counterbalance that is to give back. And this is the thing that people do not understand when they're trying to manifest. If you're saying, give me, give me, give me, give me, give me this abundant, beautiful life, what are you giving into the world that is abundant for others? What abundance are you creating around you, not just from a selfish perspective, but from the we are all one perspective? Because if you want the universe to give you something, you want to be connected to others. So start being as generous as you can with your time. If you're able to give, please give. One of the easiest things to do for an abundant life is to give regularly to food banks and to food pantries. And I'm going to teach you a really effective way to do that as well. If you can set aside $20 for it, awesome. If you can't do anything more than that, that's okay. But get to a Dollar Tree and buy $10 worth of spices right off the bat, because they have cheap spices. I actually went out and did research for this, guys. I went and I plumbed the depths of what can people get at the Dollar Tree to try and start giving back into this world. They have shelf-stable milk, which is very important. All these people give like Kraft macaroni and cheese, and it's like, yo, the people you're giving this to have no butter and no milk. What are they going to do? Chew on the noodles? Think it through when you give to a food bank. Please don't just give ramen. Like, that's not nutritionally sound. Go and make the most of the dollars that you spend. Spices are very important because nobody likes bland food. And they're very inexpensive at most ethnic food marts, particularly Indian food marts. And then Dollar Tree has a full range of spices for $1.25. I really did go and research this last week. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. If you can only afford $5 worth of stuff, only give $5 worth of stuff. If you can't afford anything, then they know that already. And you can give generously and kindly of your time. You can be kind to the people you encounter. If you wish to be given to, you need to inhabit generosity of time, of spirit. Forgive those that you can. Some people have so little that, like, even the idea of like, I cannot go to the Dollar Tree and get spices for me. I'm not going to be able to do it for somebody else. It's okay. It's just that the universe really does have a balance sheet when it comes to people. And I spoke about this in one of the podcasts I did, that I decided to close my professional office because I'm in such an affluent area of the country that I didn't want to spend all my time helping people who already had enough get more. Because that's what most of the focus was. And it's not that I disliked my clients. I love my clients, actually. I just had a wave of new clients due to, like, quite frankly, I was very fortunate and I had good reviews. And so a lot of business came towards me, but it was taking up too much of my time. And I wanted to dedicate my time to helping those with less, because that has always been my lifelong goal. If you had asked me, what did I want to do? I just want to try and make the world a better place in the ways that I can, because good people suffer far too much. When it comes to the law of attraction, if you want wealth, then figure out what you're going to give and give as much as you can. Because when you are willing to give, things can flow to you, because it's called an energy exchange. It also lowers your boundaries and barriers to something that is essentially, if you're going to be a miser, then don't expect plenty, is the easiest way to put that. If you're not going to ever give to another, then why does the universe deem you worthy of being given? You are not simply a singular, unique soul. You are part of a greater fabric. Act as if you are trying to weave a better world for all, and you will receive more easily. Now, the other thing to try and abandon is any form of extremism, and the law of attraction is a form of extreme thinking with the no doubt, no self-questioning, no negative thoughts, which is, like, again, a recipe for mental health problems. What you want to do is have a more fluid structure around what you think and what you do and what you believe. If you're engaging in any form of political extremism or dietary extremism or any form of extremism where what you believe is the only right answer, that is a form of extremist thinking. It forms a rigid structure, and it's called attachment to outcomes. That is the other thing with the law of attraction. My goodness, does it want you to have an attachment to your outcomes. And that is literally against every magic principle out there, is that you do magic and you leave it to the universe to rearrange reality in the way that will bring this to you as quickly as you can. If you are super attached to it must be this way, then get prepared to wait, because It may not be possible with what is available within reality. And if literally everybody who's practicing the law of attraction is trying to manifest money and fame, not everybody can be rich and not everybody can be famous, but you can have more than enough and you can have an opulent life worth celebrating. I'm going to stand up here because the time of beeping has begun with the garbage trucks on the world's longest driveway. And I can have every window in the place closed and we will still start getting the beep in. And this is not to shame or blame anybody. If you have not been engaging in practices where you're like, well, that does actually make sense. If I'm saying, please give to me, what am I giving in return? Why am I proving that there will be an energy exchange that I simply, because what's knocked this world off of balance is that people who have so much think they have literally no obligation to help another human being. It's like, well, I wonder why that went wrong. So this is another part of it, is if you're looking at the world around you and going, this place is dramatically screwed up, it's because of that. People think they can take and take and take endlessly and screw everybody else. And that will just lead to an energetic imbalance that usually leads to conflict and to war, quite frankly. But it always leads to something destructive. If we want to maintain, what we need is balance. If you want everything to be knocked off balance and eventually crash, then, keep it up with the only do it from a selfish standpoint and screw the world around you type of thing. And listen, I'm not trying to be controversial here and I'm not trying to be shaming, but we have to start fixing this if we want this world to get better. And the law of attraction comes from an entirely self-centered viewpoint. And it's important to have love of self, but when you truly have love of self, you understand that every person you encounter has their own battles, has their own struggles, has their own pain. Even as I talk about, like, hey, I shut down my professional office because I didn't want to spend the bulk of my personal energy trying to help people who have access to so many healing modalities because they have enough. I wanted to spend my time, my energy, my magic on trying to help people who are suffering, alleviate their suffering and find a way out of it, and to try and make the world better for as many people as I could with the energy that I have to expand. And it isn't judging the people in this area, just rather saying they don't really need me. Whereas in my experience, from what I've seen, there are too few people who are looking at this world and saying, all right, so maybe my life's not perfect, but it's certainly a lot better than a lot of people's. What can I do to try and help people? Because if you start changing one thing for the better, it can have a domino effect. It can have a cascading effect. There is worth in it because absolutely everything you do returns to you, not threefold. That's a fallacy. It's tenfold. Tenfold. 10 is the number of completion. It will come back to you. And if your response to that is saying, no, I see rich people whose luck never, ever, ever gets any worse. They have 50,000 cars, 5 different residences. They never seem to suffer from anything. They have almost no true personal happiness. They have no resonant joy. Do not judge people by what you can see, what they are feeling. That is where we get back to where the law of attraction is correct. Your universe, your reality is determined by what you think of it. And programming yourself to look for the positive after you have acknowledged the negative and dealt with it and sometimes released it is what will lead you to a more bountiful, abundant energy. So we talked a little bit about doing offerings as well. If you are not comfortable doing magic offerings, and that's fine. Like, there really are people, it's like cracks me up a little bit. There are people who are afraid of me. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like 5'3", guys, and all of 100 and maybe 12 pounds most of the time. I'm just not an intimidating person from my own standpoint. But I forget that the whole thing where I can look in tarot cards and tell people about the stuff that they don't tell other people about can be a little bit scary for people. What we have to remember is that everybody has their personal view of this world, and that everything will get better when we start trying to repair the world instead of just our place in it. Because if you are trying to build a house on a crumbling mountain, your house is going to go out when the mountain crumbles. And yes, that is a metaphor for our crumbling world. We have a lot of problems right now. And please stop blaming. It almost doesn't matter where the fire started. The important part is, how do we put out this fire and rebuild? And one of the ways that we do that is to stop letting people whose sole interest in this world is retaining their power, which I'm sorry is our government. Whatever side that you believe in, they really just want to retain power. And listen, I don't talk about politics in this podcast or on my channel, but it could not be more obvious that I lean so far to the left. It's amazing. I do not fall over, but I am not a Democrat. I'm an independent, because I don't allow other people to tell me what to think. I decide for myself. And that's what I encourage everybody to do. Please stop letting somebody who is not aiding your personal journey, but rather trying to retain their power, tell you what to think of others. Judge people as you meet them and try not to judge harshly. Look for the good in a person and encourage it, and act with kindness and compassion towards all that you meet, and you will be making your world better. And stuff is lovely. I am a Taurus. Oh my gosh, do I love my bed. I really do. Now, I'm a very atypical Taurus in that, like, literally for fun, I exercise for hours because I like it. And I don't like to eat, which is the other thing that makes me a really atypical Taurus. But like, food and I have an iffy relationship. What you need to do if you don't want to practice magic because it creeps you out is act in that way, is to create the energy exchange in all of the exchanges that you have. If you want a happier life, approach people as if their feelings matter, as if they have a human dignity that should never be disrespected, no matter who they voted for, who they are married to, what you think of their life, because they get to choose for their life and you get to choose for yours. Try to treat people as you wish to be treated. What happened with most religious structures is that they took a lot of magical concepts, because if you look at almost every religious ceremony, it's like, that is magic with a different name. They've got candles lit, they have flowers, they have all of that. A lot of religions co-opted magic structures that had been practiced for a very long time to try and draw in people who had originally been related to pagan belief systems. And what religion says about other people is really about creating a massive power for themselves. If you are willing to exclude others, it used to be, there's all different kinds of examples of it throughout history, but the easiest one for people to understand are two that were conducted in university settings. And one is the Stanford prison experiment, where people found out that if they were given complete power over other people, they almost immediately abused it. Like, really good people were like, oh my God, I engaged in hideous abuse of my fellow students because I was given full permission to do so. It's part of our psyche, it's part of our dark side, it's part of the shadow side that we need to understand in order to manifest, in order to have full access to our magic. But the other one is the blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment, which is a psychological experiment in which people are told that people with blue eyes are superior to people with brown eyes, or vice versa. And then they have people split off into groups, and the blue-eyed people go over here and the brown-eyed people go over there. And they have them engaged in, like, the brown-eyed people are talking crap about the blue-eyed people and vice versa. And like, it starts to affect how people feel about one another, because we're highly programmable. Which is, again, what the law of attraction works with. It's just that it's incomplete programming that will forever be in a loop. And I get that, like, some people are going to be wicked levels of angry at me for being willing to call out, like, the law of attraction as being deeply flawed, and it's not going to work for you unless you begin to add in the other elements of reality. Then that's okay. Because unfortunately, if I sit around with lockjaw forever, that is a problem that our entire world has, is because we have developed a world in which those who say something we do not like are attacked, and we try to tear the flesh from their bones in order to get them to shut up. Then the problem carries forward, and the problem carries forward, and the problem carries forward. And I have always been somebody who has been a bit of an outsider. I do not desire to be included on most levels. And so when people attack me, it's just like, that's fine. I'm happy enough by myself. And I also got to an age where you get old enough that you kind of don't care what other people think of you. You care what you think of you. The law of attraction has merit. It is half of a story. It is, in order to make it work, in order for you to have the best life that you can, Walk forward in a true, compassionate energy for self and others, and more will come to you because you are working from a place of purity of intent. The law of attraction tries to achieve purity of intent by, again, amputation of the darker side of ourselves, which will not work. Whereas you can have control or understanding of that part of yourself, but consciously choose good intent. Or pure, as it's hard to have pure intent as a person, but pure intent is actually pure power. And please understand that there are also, I did this in the Spirit Attachment a podcast that I just released, I think last week. I talked about there being light attachments as well as dark attachments, and there are essentially non-human entities that feed solely off that light, and they will encourage you to think these very, very ungrounded things, and they're very attracted to the law of attraction, by the way. So people have these very detailed visions of how they're going to be incredibly wealthy, and etc., and the great big stars and all the other things that people are always trying to manifest. And then, it's 4 years later and it still hasn't kind of come to them, and they're still trying, but they lose their ability to believe. So they lose the access to the magic that they were trying to create. The law of attraction is magic. It's just incomplete magic. And magic does not have to involve gods or goddesses. It has to understand an element of you have power within your reality. But that if you ignore aspects of your reality, everything that you try to manifest will be incomplete because it is lacking those elements of reality. Allow yourself to examine your doubts and to talk yourself through it, to be self-encouraging, self-loving, and self-caring. And that will manage your dark side so much better than not allowing yourself to have these thoughts. It really is one of the most dangerous things I've seen taught to anyone, because denial of reality is the thing that allows all forms of evil to flourish. If you are able to deny what is truly happening around you, there is an old saying, all it takes for evil to flourish in this world is for the good to stand by and do nothing. And it's really easy to get the good to stand by and do nothing when we are schooling people to ignore things that they do not wish to acknowledge. Acknowledge what is, and you will be able to combat it, understand yourself, and have a very powerful life. And I'm going to give you an example of what happened to me this morning that was like, I was crying for like a half hour this morning, because in my feed this morning, there were very sad stories about dogs, and there were pictures of children in Israel and in Palestine, and who are just terrified and confused and don't understand any of the politics or the long-running. Like, I can't even comment on that intelligently. It's far more complicated than anybody wants it to be. And I saw these pictures of these children who all they knew was that their world is blowing up. And so, of course, it made me cry. And I let myself cry because it's a really discouraging world, in that how's anything going to get better when we still try to blow each other up as a way of solving problems? When we're so entrenched in who's right that we never understand that outside of who is or is not right, there is a universal idea that we are all worthy and we are all one, and that we should all, in a world of plenty, be properly provided for. And if your reaction to that is, with my tax dollars, please stop overvaluing money and undervaluing people as the problem in this world. It is literally the problem that is killing us. It is destroying our world. Please examine that. And I'm not trying to shame you. I'm beseeching you to hear this. If you overvalue money, you will find how little safety it can truly buy as the world around you becomes less and less safe, which is what we are experiencing right now. Understand it is better to have less money and more safety, more community, more compassion, more love, more kindness, and more caring in a suffering world. It is our only way out of this. And part of the reason I'm always, bagging on the law of attraction is it is a very self-centered view of a reality as well. Your thoughts do create your reality, but please don't ignore the reality of others. Because even for those people, because there are people on YouTube, there's a beautiful, beautiful girl. She's called the Gem Goddess. I have absolutely no problem using her title on here, who invests very heavily in the law of attraction. And we'll talk about how she manifested this and she manifested that. And I think she's wonderful. She's a really good reader too, by the way. But it always makes me laugh a little bit because, of course, a beautiful young blonde white woman is able to get a lot of things that, she has a path paved in this world that is a lot easier of a walk than many people will have. And I don't begrudge her that. She's got a really genuine heart and spirit, but she's only ever had her own walk in life, and her ability to manifest is greatly tied to the privilege into which she was born. And it isn't saying she doesn't deserve what she has. She does deserve what she has, but she teaches something that is incomplete because she sees things from her worldview, not understanding that part of the reason I do this is generational trauma leads to generational poverty. Poverty kills compassion more than almost anything. And our world needs compassion and caring for one another so very, very much. And that's the thing that will also help with the law of attraction. If you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do moon rituals, I'm not going to do anything having to do with ancestral offerings, I really don't have the money to spend on giving to food banks or to charities. And, let's face it, there's corruption in a lot of big charities as well. Then what you can do is start to view others with an eye towards understanding that most of the time they had very little role in constructing the situations that caused them to make choices because they had limited choices. And I'm speaking very specifically about places like Seattle and Portland and Los Angeles, where we have a lot of people on the streets, a lot of people who are using drugs. And this is a choice of despair. I'm always trying to get people to understand is addiction is actually a trauma response almost always. People try to do something to alleviate their physical or their emotional pain, and it gets out of control. And people did not used to die in droves of drug addiction. So what is the thing that has changed? Indifference to the suffering of others is felt at a very core level. Please, no matter what you're doing, trying to embrace caring for one another again. And I promise you that there's like your ability to discern will open up, your ability to manifest will open up, your ability to achieve and to gain. All of those things will come to you. Your ability to succeed will open up as well. But don't be too surprised if what you think of as success undergoes a transformation as well. When you're trying to manifest, ask for enough to keep you joyful, happy, and healthy. Please. That's another key. Most of the time in the law of attraction, people are asking for more than they could ever realistically need, not understanding that there's only so much to go around, and they're trying to create an energetic imbalance in the world that sustains their reality. And that's the key element. If you want to live in your own self-created reality, if you want the life of your dreams, understand there is more to this reality than your personal perception. There is a world around it. And you need to try and invest your energy into the world around you as well. And again, one last time, if you have not noticed that things are really, really, really screwed up right now, please stop blaming one side or the other and start understanding we need a fundamental change, and the people who are in power are no longer serving anyone but their own needs. And that there needs to be changes in how things are approached. Please stop blaming people who suffer for their suffering. It is usually something they were built into an unfair system over which almost nothing could overcome. And this is where privilege comes into it as well. And I'm a privileged person. Have I always been I actually grew up incredibly poor, but I was given a passport in the way that I am perceived that allows me to have a more privileged walk through this world. And I'm very, very grateful for it. But I'm also aware that not everybody gets one. And that if it wasn't for a few genetic accidents, that I probably would have ended up very desperately poor in a very desperately poor area of the country. And I just did not, because I have some gifts, but I also have some good fortune that is not afforded to everybody. And that when you are truly blessed, when you truly have all of these gifts, they're not so that you can store up your personal coffers endlessly. They're so that you can contribute. A politician actually did say this a long time ago, but it was not a unique thought to him. To whom much is given, much is expected. But it is truly, if you are given a great deal, remember that you were brought here to be part of a greater whole, not just the center of your own personal universe. Try to act on behalf of others as well. And again, that will lower your energetic barriers and allow things to manifest around you. So I hope this contains some information for you about, let's cover one thing before I leave. Let's cover one thing that will help. Because if you are like, no, I'm perfectly fine with doing offerings. What do I do? What do I do? Because I didn't give you enough information on that. When you create like a decadent snack or an opulent thing, if you're trying to, for instance, manifest more money in your world because you need more money, don't forget to include the spices that are about abundance, which include cloves, pumpkin pie spice, perfect for it, by the way. Cinnamon is great. Clove is great. Nutmeg is kind of neither here nor there in terms of prosperity magic. Cardamom is great for love. If you're trying to manifest more love in your world, try to manifest self-love, and then you will only accept the love that is worthy for you, by the way. But include things that relate to the type of magic that you're trying to do. Chamomile, brewing up chamomile tea will help increase peace and tranquility in your life on both moon cycles. And if you're like me and you're like, no, I want to go absolutely to the wall on this, I'm going to do it day after day after day, then on days that you want things happening, use coffee. On the days that you want anxiety to be released, use either peppermint tea, which is good for releasing energies. There are herbal magical encyclopedias all over creation, basically. Hey, listen, I'm going to steer you away from witch talk a little bit because that's a witchy aesthetic, which some of them are giving good information and some of them are a little misguided. And I don't think there's anything evil behind it on any level. It's just that do some research. Do some research from multiple sources. Check 3 sources and you're very, very likely to get accurate information. And they don't have to be in complete agreement, but make sure that there's a theme around that. Basil is good for prosperity as well. If you're like, no, I don't like sweets, then make sure that you're doing things that include basil's good. Cilantro is great for self-love as well. What else would we use? Again, mint, peppermint, or spearmint. Saffron is another one. You can get a form of inexpensive saffron from Trader Joe's. Include the ingredients for, it's called kitchen witchery or green witchery, or some people call it eclectic magic as well. Include things from folk magic in the offerings that you're trying to make. And you can also take intention candles and work with color magic. Really quickly, we'll cover some of the colors. Green is for money. White is for cleansing. Pink is for friendship, love, and self-love. Red is for passionate love. And it's okay to want to manifest love in your life. If you do it towards a specific target, remember everything returns to you tenfold. So if you're trying to force somebody to do something, don't be too surprised if you lose some agency in other areas of your life as the counterbalancing energy. And some of it balances out immediately. Some of it is karmic. Make sure if you're offering flowers that they coordinate as well. Carnations are very sturdy and hardy, and they're very important in both hoodoo and in folk magic for that reason. And remember, white for purity. Yellow is one of the things that will help attract. So anything gold helps attract. Trying to think of anything else I can get going here. Oh, blue is one of the things for spirit connections and for intuition. The other thing that it's really hard to go too far wrong with is if you have a tie to the ones who loved you beforehand. If, for instance, you are deeply connected to your mom or to your grandmother or somebody else who's no longer here, you cannot go wrong with making their favorite dish, because that immediately invites that energy back closer to you and gives you a tie to your ancestral power. And what remains after death, what can still reach us if we're reaching towards the light, is the best aspect, the highest aspect of those energies, of that ancestral knowledge. We all have some of that ancestral trauma, and that is what understanding your shadow side is, and unpacking it and understanding it and resolving it so that you can work with that counterbalancing energy rather than to pretend it's not there. So this has been why the law of attraction isn't working for you and how to make it work better for you. My personal suggestion is, if you want to practice magic, do something daily. And if you want to take a day off here or there, then, you can just explain that, by the way, and take a day off here or there. But for general purposes, new moon, full moon, 3 days around the moon cycles, you can put into Google, when is the next full moon? What's the moon cycle calendar? It is best, particularly when working with the new moon or the full moon. If it's the new moon in Pisces, then that's great for developing more emotional ties, more emotional flow, more emotional wellness, more self-love. Do a little bit of research into what the astrological placement of each new or full moon is. And I really do plan to start a Patreon where I will have like more access to what you can do at each moon to give yourself better access to the universal energies that are available to you. But part of the reason the law of attraction struggles so much is it is magic that will not call itself magic. And so it's almost like it's insulting the very craft that it is trying to harness. And I've seen people manifest things through the law of attraction, and then there's always some weird consequence, because magic always has consequence to it. It's why celestial and angelic magic is the thing that I finally settled upon. If you're not doing any form of baneful magic, then the consequence of what you're doing is not great misfortune in your life. It is that you will be blessed if you are trying to bless others with what you are doing. And that's not why I chose it. It really is that it took me it took me a long time to understand that there was a thread throughout my life where people had told me, you should be this, you should be that. Like I was one of those people where you should be a writer, you should be a this, you should be a that. And I never really followed through on any of those things, because throughout that, the actual underlying theme of that was I simply wanted to try and be a better person and make a difference in this world. And this is the way that I try to do it. I encourage others to try and embrace that as well, but it doesn't have to be everybody's calling. Just embrace the parts of it that you can. And your manifestations will begin to increase, because your ability to receive universal love, which is what you're really trying to do when you are trying to work with the law of attraction, is you're like opening your arms up and your energy up and saying, bring to me all that is good. Put out all that is good, and it will come to you far, far, far more easily. And be self-loving and self-understanding. And when you're self-loving and self-understanding, it's a lot easier to be understanding of others and loving of others, even when sometimes they're being impossible, because I know I can be impossible sometimes as well. Anyway, this has been Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica. If you want to book me for a tarot reading or a life coaching session, you can do so at therisingmoon.com. That is the only way to book me. Seriously, please do not pay any attention to anybody, particularly if they have a WhatsApp connection. That is not me. And as far as I know, they just take the money and they don't even try and provide a reading. But at therisingmoon.com, only way to book me for anything. You can find me here at Logical Magic, Examining Esoterica, and you can also find me at Cronecast at the Rising Moon on YouTube, and that is where I post all of the video versions of these podcast interviews and podcast segments. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care, be well, practice a form of energetic magic to go along with the law of attraction, and you will have more start to come to you almost immediately. Take care.